So I'm going to play this without. So this is now going to be just the pure wet reverb sound. So I've just soloed the vocal reverb without the de-esser. And again, listen out for those sibilant sounds, the tss, tss, tss sounds. Okay, and then this is with the de-esser. Okay, so you can hear it's attenuated, those tss, tss, tss. Obviously, this is exaggerated. In the mix, this reverb isn't going to be as hot. It's not going to be as loud, as prominent as the actual vocal track itself. So that would apply some attenuation in itself. So how did I put this together? What settings did I use?
You're listening to the Inside the Mix podcast with your host, Mark Matthews.
Hello, folks, and welcome to the Inside the Mix podcast. If you are a new listener, make sure you hit follow on your podcast player of choice. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button so you get notified whenever a new episode drops. And to the returning listeners, a huge welcome back as always. A couple of years ago, I posted a short tutorial on how to create a smooth vocal reverb. And I posted it on YouTube Shorts, Instagram, TikTok, probably everywhere on social media. Bearing in mind it was 2 years ago and I was trying to be omnipotent, and now I just concentrate on YouTube and Instagram. And anyway, this video, this tutorial was using a de-esser on a vocal reverb to reduce sibilance. And it's quite a crude video that I created. It's one of those UGC ones, user-generated content, where it's just my camera on my phone pointed at the screen. You can't really hear anything. And one of the comments was, I would love to hear how this sounds, which probably makes sense, right? It's a tutorial. You want to know what it sounds like. But they said they were going to try it anyway. So I have been waiting for some good source material to do a proper demonstration on this. And that's what we're going to do in this episode. We're going to be using a de-esser on a reverb send for a vocal to attenuate the tss and the tss sounds, so sibilant sounds. So let's dive in. So we're in Logic Pro. And in this particular session, I've got this vocal track. And being brutally honest, it wasn't the best recording of this performance. The microphone, I'm not sure what microphone was used for this, but there was a lot of tss and tss sounds in it, very close to the microphone. It took a fair bit of production. I didn't want to remove too much because you still want it to sound natural, right? So on the actual track itself, there is De-Essing. I've got the RX De-Esser plugin on the actual vocal track, but again, you don't want to remove too much sibilance because then it sounds unnatural. And what I did notice was that in the reverb for this vocal, there was those, I'm going to do it again, the tss and the tss sounds, and it's quite rhythmic. So I'm going to play you the track now with the reverb. I say the track, I'm going to play you the vocal with the reverb, and listen out. It's quite rhythmic. You hear a tss, tss, tss sort of sound towards the latter stage of this vocal phrasing here, and that's what I wanted to attenuate in the reverb channel because it was just too much for me, and we're going to use the de-esser to attenuate it. So I'm waffling now, but let's play it, and just listen out for like a rhythmic tss, 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 and I'll point it out. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll sort of point at the camera every time it comes in.
In my body, I was able to feel this way. In my body, I was able to feel this way. In my body, I was able to feel this way.
I should have said this before I played the example, which is to put some headphones on because you can really hear it. The tss, tss, tss. So we're going to use a de-esser on the reverb send, the auxiliary channel, to attenuate those sibilant frequencies. So this is how I set the de-esser up. I'm using the Logic Pro DeEsser 2 plugin, but you can use any reverb, and it's on my vocal reverb send here at the end of the plugin chain. So I'm going to play this without. So this is now going to be just the pure wet reverb sound. So I've just soloed the vocal reverb without the de-esser. And again, listen out for those sibilant sounds, the tss, tss, tss sounds. Okay, and then this is with the de-esser. Okay, so you can hear it's attenuated, those tss, tss, tss. Obviously, this is exaggerated. In the mix, this reverb isn't going to be as hot. It's not going to be as loud, as prominent as the actual vocal track itself. So that would apply some attenuation in itself. So how did I put this together? What settings did I use? So first, I selected the female vocal split band preset in the De-Esser 2 plugin, and then I tweaked it from there. I just wanted the initial threshold setting. And the first thing I did was I used the filter solo so I could identify the sibilant frequency. So I'm going to play it, and then I'm going to sweep around, and you'll hear that sibilant sound jump out of your headphones or speakers or however you're listening. So I'm going to play it now, and this is going to help me identify the sibilant frequency. So I swept around and I settled on around 7,200 hertz, rounding it down. Actually, I rounded it down. So it's actually 7,264 hertz if I'm going to be exact. And I've got the filter set to a notch filter. So it's only going to attenuate that particular sort of notch, that particular range of frequencies. I didn't want to use the shelf because then that's going to attenuate anything thereafter. It's just that band that I wanted. And I've also got it set in split mode as well in terms of range. The split range basically means it's just going to attenuate that range of frequencies. The wide setting, the wide range, is going to attenuate all frequencies. So that's why we're using split. Then we have the threshold. And the really cool thing about the De-Esser 2 is you've got this detection circuit, this visual representation of the threshold and the processed and unprocessed signal. So in short, in the detection circuit in De-Esser 2, when you see a blue bar, that is unprocessed audio. The yellow bar indicates processed audio, where that attenuation of the sibilant frequencies is going to take place. So you can almost use the detection visually, the detection circuit here, the visual representation that is, to set the threshold, because you don't want attenuation to occur when there aren't sibilant frequencies present. So if I play this, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see that the yellow bar, the processed signal, is only apparent when those sibilant frequencies, when we can hear them. If you've got the threshold to low, then you'll find that it's going to start to attenuate non-sibilant frequencies, or rather, it's going to attenuate those frequencies, but there isn't sibilance present. So I'll play it, and if you're watching this, you'll see what I mean. So again, the yellow bar in the detection circuit is only present. That processed signal is only present when we're hearing that tss and that tss sounds. So it's also another nice way of just highlighting that we've sort of got the frequency selection in the right ballpark. We're still in filter solo mode at the moment. So let's take it out of filter solo mode and let's play it. Now we want this to sound relatively natural, and we use the max reduction setting or the reduction setting to control that. And I've got it set to 9. So that means at most 9 dB of reduction or gain reduction will take place for the sibilant or processed audio, let's say, in that sibilant frequency range. And I'll make it shorter. In fact, what I'll do is I'll play it and I'll gradually reduce that number all the way to 1. So I've got it set to 0 now, and you can hear that tss, tss, tss is coming through more. So I'll drag it the other way and I'll go back to 9. There we are. You can hear the tss, tss, tss sounds have been attenuated. They're still there, but they're not as prominent as they were before. So let's play it with the vocal as well. So I've got my vocal here. I'm going to solo it, and I've got the reverb. So make sure the De-Esser is on. It is. And let's play this.
In my body, I was able to feel this way. In my body, I was able to feel this way.
So you can hear the tss, tss, tss sounds that I've been banging on about are now attenuated. They're lower in the mix. I say the mix, it's only the vocal, it's not the full mix. So a quick recap of what we did. So we've got a De-Esser on the vocal reverb channel here. It's the last plugin in the chain. I used the filter solo to highlight the sibilant frequencies. Now you could just use an EQ after this if you haven't got filter solo and just do a narrow boost and sweep around until you find it. We've got the filter setting set to a notch filter, so it's a select band of frequencies that we're attenuating. And the same with the range. We're using split, as again, we don't want to attenuate the wide range, the full frequency spectrum. The threshold controls the detection circuit of when the processed signal the processing of the signal will take place. So we set it so we're only processing the signal when the sibilant frequencies are heard. And then we use max reduction to control the max reduction, the amount of gain reduction that's going to take place on the sibilant frequencies. So really subtle, but it will help create a nice smooth reverb because you're eliminating the tss and the tss sounds. Well, you're not eliminating them, you're attenuating them. Eliminating is the wrong word. You don't want to eliminate them because then it will sound unnatural. So folks, I hope you found this episode useful and now you can create some smooth vocal reverbs. If you would like to provide some feedback, which would be amazing, and feature on the podcast, click on the link in the episode description. It's a SpeakPipe link, and you can record up to 30 seconds of audio reviewing the episode and why you would recommend it, and also give yourself a shout out. So who you are, where the audience can find you online, so social media handle or website, why you enjoyed the episode and why you would recommend it. And I will feature it at the beginning of an Inside the Mix podcast episode. So evergreen content, give yourself a shout out and why you would recommend a particular episode, or rather this episode, or to be fair, any episode. And as I say, it's an opportunity for you to give yourself a shout out. Use the link in the episode description. It's SpeakPipe. You don't need an app. You don't need an account. And you can use the microphone on your mobile phone. Easy as that. It's like leaving an audio message. And not only will you get to feature on the podcast, but everybody who submits audio, I will put your name into a virtual hat and I will draw one lucky winner to win a Starbucks coffee voucher. I can't say better than that, right? So submit your audio, why you'd recommend an episode, who you are, social media handle, feature on the podcast, and also potentially win some coffee vouchers. If you don't like coffee, give it away to someone else and say you bought it for them, and it's a treat from them. You don't have to include me. So until next time, happy mixing and producing, folks.